Thank you so much for tuning in to Who's Event Insider panel session. We are happy to see everyone who is tuning in and joining us this morning. So if you don't know who I am, I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself to everyone here. My name is Jocelyn, and I'll be the host and moderator for today's session. Today's Event Insider panel topic is Recession Proof Your 2023 Events, where we will have our guest speakers join us to dive into their best tips and practices to navigate and adjust their event planning during this time of economic uncertainty. Now that I have our poll results posted here, the first poll question that we asked is how has your budget changed going into the first half of 2023? And most of you responded with a 50% saying that my budget will remain the same. That's a very interesting result here, along with 20% of respondents tied with their budget decreasing by 20% or more, as well as another 20% of votes saying that their budget has decreased between 10 to 20%, and other percentages here for 100%, which is, I would say, another 10 and 10% say that their budget has decreased by 20% or more, or increased by 20% or more. 20% or more. So there is a little split here results for the first question. So I want to thank everyone sharing their responses and saying how their budget has changed in the year here in 2023. And moving on to the next poll question here, we asked our participants in which areas would you like to save costs in 2023? And the popular response is kind of mixed here, actually, with three results kind of tying in with 21.4%, which is operational efficiency costs, food costs, and event venue costs. They are the leading components here that are what event organizers are trying to save cost in for 2023. And following with that, others have said that they want to save cost in printing, as well as travel costs. Sorry, I apologize. I did a confusion here. So 21% is tied with event venue cost, operational efficiencies, and food costs, while 14% is with travel costs as well as printing costs. And the other small portion is of other expenses that you are trying to save on. So I want to thank everyone here for sharing your responses here in the second poll question. And the final question we asked is, what would you like to get out of today's session? And here are some of the responses our participants have posted. So as you can see here in our screen, the responses are ideas on venue contracting with flexibility based on economic shifts. Another one is that they would like to learn some tips on how to be more efficient with my business for a larger profit, creative ideas to gain more sponsorship and generate additional income, tips for reducing costs without diminishing the experience of raising ticket prices and how to sell more tickets, ways to generate additional income without adding more staff, and looking to save money wherever they can. So thank you for those of you who shared your thoughts in today's polls. It's great to see the feedback. And like I mentioned in the beginning of our session, we will be touching on some of these topics during our discussion, along with a variety of other topics. So thank you all for tuning in and sharing your thoughts in today's polls. If you're interested in viewing more content for event organizers, subscribe to our channel, where we will continue to upload interviews with top event professionals and new content on the latest event industry trends. I'm going to go ahead and officially begin today's panel discussion by introducing our guest speakers. First, we have Lady Jane Acquah, who is the Special Events Manager at Internal Care. Lady Jane, welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's great to have you as a guest speaker. Can you feel free to introduce yourself to the audience?
Hi, Jocelyn. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Lady Jane Acquah. I am in Austin, Texas. I work with Integral Care, and Integral Care is the local area mental health service provider. So we provide services for mental health, substance use, intellectual and developmental disabilities, and a whole lot more. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lady Jane, for your introduction. It's great to have you here as a guest speaker. And I'm also pleased to welcome our second speaker for today, who is Jamal Robinson. Jamal is the treasurer of the Texas Alliance of Black School Educators. Jamal, I'm handing the mic to you, so feel free to introduce yourself as well.
Good morning. My name is Jamal Robinson, and as Jocelyn shared, I am the treasurer and partnership manager for the Texas Alliance of Black School Educators. We are a state affiliate of the National Alliance of Black School Educators, known as NABC. We are a nonprofit based out of Houston, Texas, but we represent all of the whole entire state of Texas. And each year we have our annual conference during February, where we provide professional development for not just educators, community leaders, parents, anybody that wants to be involved. We've expanded our model from doing the conference throughout the year, and we'll discuss about that a little bit later. And thank you for having me today.
Thank you so much for being here with us, Jamal, as well. And I'm very much looking forward to hearing from both you and Lady Jane regarding your advice on today's topic. So I'm just going to go ahead and start with this first question. Can you share a little bit about some general info about the most recent you ran? For example, how many days did it last? How many attendees, speakers, sponsors, and exhibitors that you have? So Lady Jane, I will be starting with you first.
All right. So yeah, I'm the special events manager for Integral Care. So I have the responsibility of planning the Central Texas African American Family Support Conference. And this conference is about bringing the community together to talk about mental health, substance use, intellectual disabilities over the course of 2 days. And we've done it for 23 years. So in February of this year, we had a 2-day event. We had about 452 people turn up, and it's the first time we are coming back in person because of COVID. We had 40 speakers, 2 keynotes, 2 entertainers. We had a live DJ. Did I tell you it was a hybrid event? It was a hybrid event. We had 46 exhibitors, both in person and online, and we also had 68 volunteers, which also included my team members. We had a lot of fun. The conference has a family reunion feel to it. And so we look forward to seeing everybody every year.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Lady Jane. It's great to see how your event fosters a great community. And then Jamal, can you share some details about the past event you organized?
Yes. So our past event, as I mentioned earlier, was this past February. And we had upwards to 1,100 participants. We are a nonprofit. We don't have a full-time staff. All of us are volunteers. So we have a conference committee of about 45 people to help support these 1,000 people, which everything from logistics to planning to proposals and presentations. And just like Lady Jane shared, our event is like a family reunion. And it seems that we're growing more and more every year, especially as people are becoming more comfortable with our app that we're using.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing here and for providing some background for the type of events you both had. So moving on here, the main topic for today's panel discussion is how to navigate your event planning during this state of economic uncertainty. These type of circumstances tend to affect event organizers regarding how they spend money and when they're going to run their events. So nonetheless, from today's polls results, it showed that many organizers plan to retain their event budget the same. In your point of view, has the economic situation impacted your event planning this year? Jamal, care to share first?
Yes, it has. And if I may be allowed to, let me take a step back. When we implemented Hoover, we implemented it right before COVID. COVID came. Then, so we had to do hybrid. Then the ice storm came. We had to do a different version then as well. And so we've experienced both remote, hybrid, and regular, all during the first 3 years that we've been with this contract. To answer your question, this past year with budgets, food costs have gone astronomically to the point where, quite frankly, we didn't make a profit this conference, even though we've been cut down our costs, cut down and increase attendance and increase ticket prices. So when planning for that, my suggestion is to plan for a cushion, because those things happen. Be prepared to have to shoulder those costs outside of your budget. because the unexpected will happen when you least expect it, no matter how much planning you have.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for that, Jamal. Sometimes even though your budget does remain the same, sometimes it might not be, kind of aligning with how things are costing and the price of other things that you have to use for your event planning. So thank you so much for that, Jamal. And Lady Jane, how has your event planning been this year?
I think I have the same experiences as Jamal. So we actually implemented Hoover right after the ice storm. So we didn't have anything to compare with. And we went virtual for 2021 and 2022. When we went virtual, we took a small local Central Texas event national. We even have some attendees from Canada and UK. So now we've gained new folks, right? Then the question was, well, COVID is over, so what do we do? Do we do an in-person event? Do we continue virtual? And remember, I told you our conference is like a family reunion. It's not for profit. It's absolutely to promote mental health and to reduce the stigma associated with it. Definitely, you are not making any money from this. So the question was, do we stay on with the same budget? Do we need more? Of course, we need more, because everything has gone up, from the venue to food to AV team to speakers, right? And everybody must be paid. So unfortunately for us, we went up about 70%. It was totally unintended, but it was also for us to learn what we could do next. So yeah, costs went up for everything. So our next event, we're still trying to come up with ideas on what to do to save on everything.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much for sharing here. So it's been about adjusting for both of you, trying to kind of stay in pace with, the rise of cost here in current situations. So I want to appreciate you both for sharing a little bit of your event planning for the year. And while we don't have a crystal ball to know what the future economic situation will be in the next few months or, at the end of the year, event organizers are always looking for ways to improve and enhance their events, just like you both commented. So it's always a good idea to kind of already start improving budget efficiencies and generate more income. So I'm going to dive in with budget efficiency first. So my question is, what is your overall event budget strategy? Does it change with the economy, or do you prefer to keep your system consistent? Lady Jane, I'll turn to you first again for a response.
Well, ideally, we would love to cater to everybody and still continue to provide this conference as a resource. But we can't keep up with the changes in the economy. We can't keep up with the budget. So of course, we would love to have more money to do things, but it's just not feasible. So I guess what we are working on right now is to get a fixed budget and make it work for us, especially because this is not a profit-making budget. It also means looking for new sponsors so that we can offset some of these costs. If some organization can write up some of the costs for us, that would be great. But yeah, the idea is not to keep going up simply because you're paying 70% more for venue or 80% more for food.
Awesome. So your strategy currently is to kind of look for more sponsorship to kind of gain a little bit more revenue for your budget. So
yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Lady Jane. And Jamal, what about you? What's your take?
In our position, we're trying to do a mix of things, more with less, strategic investments, and a really aggressive fundraising. We're in the process of redesigning we're constantly redesigning our sponsorship, our partnership packages. Every partner I talk to, I say, let's make a deal. How can we help you get your ROI, your return on investment, and then invest them further into assisting us with that? But in that same token, we've taken a customer service approach where we want to make sure that our people get the bang for their buck. What are we giving them at registration? Is it something that's nice and feasibly economical for our budget? How can we afford to feed them without going over our thing? Because people like to eat. People tell us all the time we feed them more than they ever been fed before. That's because it's been very economical on our budgets to do so. But also in that token, we place some of those food places in the route to where our exhibitors are. So as we've increased that price, they see the bang for their buck, and they're actually using the exhibitor passport contest more because they have to walk all the way past those exhibitors just to get their stamps. So it's just finding what the niche is that works for your organization and just being open to change it. It may work one time, it may work one day, and it may not work the next day. So you're just figuring out what works for your team.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Jamal. And I'm not sure if I heard correctly, but are you putting like food close to exhibitors so then they're like people go and want to get some food and then they have to interact with it? Oh, that's a great.
We did continental breakfast, and we'll do like an afternoon snack, and we put the food all the way on the other end of the exhibitor hall because we took out of the, not exhibitor hall, we put our exhibitors in the hallway next to the classrooms. So they'll be around there. But we took the food that we're providing all the way at the end of that. So they have to walk by.
Awesome. And they have to engage some shape or form if they want to get some food. Awesome. That's very interesting to see. So thank you so much for your thoughts and sharing here, Jamal. And continuing with the topic of saving money and adjusting budgets accordingly, today's polls also showed that many event organizers who are joining us today want to reduce their costs, particularly in event venues. And I think you kind of covered on that, implying also food being another big cost that a lot of people want to save. So Jamal, I'll ask you first. Do you have any tips on saving for a venue cost?
If your organization can do investing in prepay anything, especially AV, we've invested a lot in AV in the last few years. Under 20,000, we bought some speakers and things under a little bit for nothing, and it's really cut off about $50,000 off of our conference budget because we're retrofitting our rooms. We're bringing in our own decorations. I forgot about decorations. We probably save more, close to $75,000 each year just because of that. Whatever you can bring on site, or whatever you have the capacity to store to bring on site, I would suggest you go ahead and do that because it's going to take a big chunk because we don't know how food prices are going to go. Venues are trying to make their money back for the COVID and any other weather anomaly. So that's going to be the quickest way to see some savings, in my opinion.
Awesome. So investing in a couple of things like decorations and AV tech and all that kind of stuff beforehand. If you have the opportunity, if you made maybe from previous year, you made a profit and start investing in a couple of other things that you might need for the next year is kind of useful.
Yes.
So thank you so much for that, Jamal. And Lady Jane, do you have any additional tips for saving on a venue cost?
Yes, excellent point, Jamal. I hope you're all taking note of that. The difference between my event and Jamal's event is that his is for profit, mine isn't. And so we definitely cannot invest in, the equipment and everything. But I would say if you're looking for a venue, oftentimes we go for a big venue and then we have a few turnouts. So you might want to go for a venue that will fit your audience. The other thing is a venue that has all other vendors in-house. Because from my experience, if you have a venue and you have to bring in people to bring a vendor to bring in furniture, to do the floor arrangement, to provide AV, and even catering, all of that are costly. But if you have one venue that can provide all of these services, it definitely cuts down on the price. And then also consider going virtual. Hoover gives you the opportunity to do everything that you can do in person, except hugging people and, shaking hands. We've done it virtual with a live DJ and all, and it works. So it doesn't necessarily have to be in person, but virtual really is another option.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Lady Jane. And while we are discussing tips on how to save money in event venues, I also want to ask you both if you have other cost-saving tips, particularly food as being one of them. That is also another big cost incurred when an in-person event, but also with ship delivery, travel, and others that we probably didn't cover. So do you have any other tips, Lady Jane?
Sure. Food and venue, they are the most costly items on any budget. And so, of course, like I said before, if you want to go for a venue that actually fits the number of attendees, it's the best. There really isn't any need for you to have a huge space and you don't use all because you're paying for it. Food, do you want to do a full buffet versus lunch boxes? Or maybe a light refreshment or something. If it's virtual, there is no travel, there is no accommodation to take care of, right? Printing agendas, that's my favorite. If you're using a platform like Hoover, you don't have to print the agenda because you have a whole section dedicated to agenda with speaker bios and all attendee bios. It's the best. Encourage your attendees to use it. And if you must print anything, a one-page sheet with what is happening, where and what time works just fine.
Awesome.
I wonder what Jamal has to add.
Yeah, I was actually going to go ahead and turn with Jamal here and see if he has any other tips that you want to add onto for this topic.
No, I agree with Lady Jane. I wish I could get my people to fully pull away from the print because that's a very big expense for us. And we've been trying to cut that down, but you know how we're in our 39th year this year. So it's a hard habit to break. But as Lady Jane shared, virtual is your better bang for your buck. We saw a 80% profit above what we normally do just off of our virtual. So if you can go virtual, that's the best thing to do because just like with your venue will determine how many people you need. I mean, how much space you need, how much space you're going to use. Our conference is over 4 days, so we use a lot of space. You just have to get very creative and figure out what's going to work for your organization. And you cannot be scared to try something new. When we meet with our partners, I say, hey, don't wait for me to give an idea. If you have an idea, share it with me. We'll figure out how to make it work. And the more you do that, the more you build trust, the more money they want to give if you're using a partner like that. But talk to your team. They come up with some innovative things that you might have overlooked. Say, hey, you know what? Maybe we could try this. The virtual DJ, great, works with us as well. So just think outside of the box and don't limit yourself.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Jamal. And while we are still in the topic of saving money, another way to do this is to optimize operational efficiencies. One way to do that is with automation. And we kind of already covered, having digital agendas would be ideal for most of you, but that's one way to kind of eliminate printing costs. But I do want to ask you, and I'll start with Jamal first. Have you automated any operational processes for your events?
Yes, we are actually looking at increasing our QR code usage that is built into the app to see if we have like a self-serve kiosk. We've kind of put it on our ID badges to get people comfortable with using it. That's been a big thing to help with our manpower to actually focus on some things. The ticketing system that Hoover has in place has helped us a lot. When it comes to registration, us being able to check reports. We're just optimizing and changing what works and what doesn't work. The session feedback tools have allowed us to get rid of things that weren't working and enhance things that were. So that's how we're optimizing a lot of our processes using the feedback and the surveys tools available.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Jamal. And Lady Jane, how about you? What have you automated in your event planning process?
Almost everything. Hoover has become a one-stop place for everything. So, save for registration, because we already had a system going and hopefully we can move registration there too. But the agenda from advertising, because if you go to the marketing section of Hoover, you can create your flyers and automate that to go out on all social media, so we really have moved away from doing radio ads, paper flyers and promoting and all of that to electronic advertising, right? So that's easy to do. Taking surveys, like Jamal said, using the QR codes and everything. So really Hoover helps. It's less people to kind of help get things going. But I want to say that it takes time for the attendees. They have to learn how to use it. And so year by year, you introduce something, you keep bombarding people with emails, walking them through how to use it and how to do it. And it's helped. It's helped.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. And I just kind of want to touch a little bit on digital advertising. So what are the ways that you kind of promote your event now digitally, since you said you eliminated paper flyers and radio advertising, right? So can you expand a little bit on that, Lady
Right.
Jane?
So you can create the flyers yourself if you have the capacity to do that, or you can count on Hoover's templates to, it's easy. Everybody can do it, pretty intuitive. So you put in the information that you need. You can connect it to your social media account and then set it to go out on specific times of the day, how many times, however you want it. So that part of it is taken care of. You don't have to think about, oh, I need to have somebody take care of advertising and all of that. And outside Hoover, we also do our own social media campaigns, and it works.
Awesome. So you're leveraging your social media to promote further your event.
Yes.
Use your own team and the graphics provided on
Hoover. Yes.
Awesome. That's really great to hear. So thank you so much for further sharing on that, Lady Jane. So automating operations means bringing technology solutions into your event planning. You both have mentioned Hoover, and I'm sure you have used other technology platforms. But since right now, most of us are trying to find ways to lower our expenses, there's been more buzz about tech consolidation that encourages organizers to consolidate different IT tasks into a single tech platform, particularly like Hoover, like you both just mentioned here. Are you considering adopting tech consolidation even further for your future events? So I'm going to circle back with you, Lady Jane.
Sure. We've done it. 3 years. It's worked. We all love it. We've somehow managed to also train or get our attendees to get on board with that. So things that it had to be a manual exercise. Now we don't have to do that, right? You carve out some time for yourself. 2-4 hours, your agenda is done. I'm not chasing anybody looking for quotes for printing anymore. I don't need that. Advertising, same thing. Registration, same thing. What else? Training people and even how to do things. Exhibitors, like all of that. Hoover has provided that avenue for us to make it easy on both the planners and the attendees. And I don't see us going back on that.
Great, thank you so much for that. Jamal, what is your take on tech consolidation? Have you planned to do that for your upcoming events?
Well, actually, I just remember we have used Hoover for several events outside of our conference, and our base, just like Lady Jane's base, has seemed to become more comfortable with it. And really was very surprising. Our exhibitors have become extremely more comfortable with it, and the same thing with our speakers as well. They've been really exploring some features that we hadn't had the opportunity to expound upon because we're still in the implementation phase. So as Hoover releases new features, where our team has been looking at what feature is going to benefit us, or how we can transition some of our in-person things to use this feature and reduce costs for the in-person part of it. If that makes sense. For example, we have a Moments with Mentors session that can be used for the one-on-one feature and free up that space for us, or reduce the space and that cost attached to that. So as we integrate more IT, we're just looking at all the options that best benefit us.
Great, thank you so much for that, Jamal. And on a final note about modifying operational efficiencies, some organizers kind of have different ways to have their staff. Some prefer to have in-house staff for their event planning and operations, while others might outsource and use contractors. So what staff team do you outsource, and what staff do you prefer to keep in-house? And Jamal, I'm gonna go back to you for this question.
So as I mentioned, we are a full-time nonprofit with volunteers that have full-time jobs. So we try to limit what we outsource because of just operational costs in general. But due to the usability of Hoover, we've been able to cut down on working times because people have full-time jobs, and it's easier to just have a click and go or upload and go than it is to sit down and make spreadsheets, so on and so forth. So as we become more comfortable with the software, what we were planning to outsource, we're not planning to outsource anymore. We're able to keep it in our very close-knit committee to focus on other things, or we've been able to use it as a resource, as a backbone, actually, for things that we don't know what's going on. We can, hey, let me check the app. Let me see what's going on. So that has kind of helped us reduce whether or not we outsource or even have to add additional hands and feet to our committee, our additional manpower. We were able to stabilize our manpower. I think that's a better term concerning that.
Awesome. So technology solutions and platforms have kind of helped you not even considering outsourcing and keeping everything with your in-house staff, just because it's eliminated, time-consuming tasks, I would say.
Yes.
Awesome. All right. And Lady Jane, what about you?
Same thing. We have a core group of workers from Integral Care, but the actual planning and moving around and shaking things is done by volunteers. They are community members, so parents, teachers, politicians, students, people are willing to volunteer. So I work with committee members to do everything. And then on the day of events, all the people who come together to make it work are volunteers. And you'll be amazed at the number of people who would love to be a part of any event. So
awesome.
Nothing is outsourced, really.
Great. So it looks like you have a community that is also willing to volunteer. A community that's willing to volunteer and kind of just be part of your event. So nothing has to be outsourced. Okay. So, all right. Thank you so much for that, Lady Jane. And now that we've covered ways that we can reduce costs and how things that should adjust our budget when organizing an event, I do want to move on here and start with another important topic, which is how to increase event income. For many of our audience members here, their event budget is probably approved by upper management. So what is your advice on advocating for an increased event budget, for more resources to upper management? So Lady Jane, I will start with you first again.
Well, like I said earlier on, my event is not for profit, but we also always have to make a case for why we need this amount of money. So really, it's about the return on investment, right? How many people are attending the event? How many lives are we influencing? And for those of you whose events are for profit, how much profit are you bringing in? So you need that data to go make your ask. You have to have the data for the number of people who attended, how much money you brought in from, say, advertisements or sponsorship or exhibitors or whatever. And if you have that data to prove that you are constantly bringing in something, then you have a case to ask for more. But if you've been operating at a loss for year over year, that would be hard. That would be hard for you to say, we want more money to bring in a loss. That just doesn't sound right. But that's where we are. So for us, it's about attendance. 2 years going virtual, we got more people than when we were in person in the Central Texas event. And so when it came time for us to become hybrid, it really wasn't a question of, no, we won't do it, but it was a question of how do we continue to keep the new folks that we've had? Mm-hmm. We know what mental health is to us. We want to continue to promote it, reduce the stigma associated with it. But that means we needed a hybrid event. And so with the data of how many people have attended over the 2 years where we were hybrid versus when it was not hybrid, it was a no-brainer. Yes, let's go hybrid, because now we are really making a good kind of improving our efforts. We've seen the data is proving to us that a lot of people who lived outside Texas, in New York, in Georgia, Ohio, Chicago, everybody is interested in this. And so you provide that. That's where we are. We're hoping that we can continue to promote this conference and have more people join and to learn more about mental health.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Lady Jane. And Jamal, what is your advice to advocate for an increased budget with upper management?
I think as like Lady Jane said, it's data. Your data is going to be your talking point. Whether you increase your budget or whether you're soliciting support, your data and all of that. Like, who is your audience? Who are you reaching? What does your audience say about the product or the service that you're providing? How can we best increase our revenue? They're asking for, we need more food or we need less food. We need to know this thing. And the only way you know that is through your data. Your data is your key to everything. And you have to figure out how to get as much accurate and in-depth data as possible, whether it's through informal or formal. And a lot of times the app helps assist with that. That's why it's important for you to monitor your message boards and see what your people are talking about. They're sending you a message, you need to respond within 10 minutes or less, because they can help or hurt you, as we all know, being in the customer service world that we are in now.
Great. So, creating compelling data, right? And justifications of saying, we are bringing something valuable to our audience members in order for us to get a little bit more money would be nice to continue the same pace. So data and kind of showing in your upper management that you are bringing something good to the table for your.
Justin, can I add one more thing?
Sure, sure.
The Hoover report is actually one of my favorite reports to share with my people, because they can see in real time with the graphs and the points, like these are issues that I brought up before, our executive team has brought up before, and they just blew apart. But when they saw that report and they saw the impact of what was going on, it made them move with speed. So that report is a very good tool for data to share with your superiors or even your laterals, whoever is planning your conference.
You are awesome. Right. You are right. And let me add something to that. That report is life-saving. It captures certain things that you will ordinarily not capture. And so kudos. I'm happy to have that.
Awesome. That's really great to hear. And it's great to hear that Huba is providing some assistance with that, just kind of compiling and getting some data for you both that you can leverage moving forward with future event planning. So thank you so much for sharing on that. And another alternative to increase your event income is through event ticket sales. I know we kind of briefly talked about this in our discussion, but as in-person events are becoming costly, a result of this is to raise ticket prices. Yet other organizations, like you just mentioned, are considering a hybrid format so they can sell virtual session tickets. So if you have any experience or opinions on this, I would love to hear about your approach to the hybrid event format. Lady Jane, I'm going to ask you first for this question, if you want to share your opinions and experience for hybrid events.
Right. Let me start off by saying we tried increasing ticket sales. And like I've been telling you, the conference is not for making money, but we still need the money to make it happen. It didn't work. We ended up paying for more people or sponsoring more people to attend that in the past. And so hybrid is the best way going forward so that people don't see the need to travel, right? Stay wherever you are. For a small fee, you are able to join us all day long. That also means that we don't have to get a huge venue. A small venue with the people who are able to come in, that works perfect for us. And then to help people pay for this event, we have this policy, or not a policy per se, but it's called Each One Bring One. So if you are able to register for yourself and afford to donate something towards somebody else, we encourage people to do that. Any amount is good. 50 cents, $1, $100, we will take it. So we are able to offset the cost of attendance for other people. We're also counting on sponsors or individuals to come in and help us continue with this conference. But hybrid seems like the best option going forward.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Lady Jane. And Jamal, do you have any opinions on this question?
Yeah, we've always had a pretty multiple ticket tier system, we have had to increase. And if I memory serves me correct, we slightly decreased during our virtual and our hybrid years. But we also added more ticket types for specific groups that we service. We have exclusive events. We increased our prices for our exhibitors, as well as we're looking at increasing for our sponsors. And we're still below market. Our highest ticket alone is about, I believe, $495 for a person, and compared to for a conference, it's pretty low. But it's just one of those things. You just have to figure out what works best for your audience and just have a justification for that. You know, it's costs are costs, and people understand that things are going up. We're able to get away with a little bit because we have a lot of our participants use state and federal funds to support that, but they also understand that they're getting a lot of the bang for their buck. And that's all I really can say about that. You just have to understand your audience to determine that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. So if you are going to take a hybrid event format, it's kind of knowing what your audience is willing to pay and what they can see value on. So thank you for that, Jamal. And I do want to take this little quick moment to let our audience members know that we will have a Q&A portion in today's session. So if you do have any other questions for our speakers, you can drop them down here on our Q&A section, as I will be kind of giving a few minutes for those questions and moderating those to our speakers. So definitely type any questions that you may have in our Q&A section. So I'm going to go back now to our panel discussion. And, offering virtual tickets can be one way to increase ticket sales and revenue, but, some event organizers are still willing to stick with an in-person event and need to accommodate their budget for the increase in event costs. So if you were to host an in-person event, by how much would you increase the ticket prices? Jamal, since you had a in-person event or have raised ticket prices, what is your approach for this?
We will look at our whole package. For example, for our entire conference, we say we're providing XYZ, they're getting XYZ. How can we calculate that cost? Because quite frankly, this really goes back to food costs. We try to get the cheaper chicken, and the chicken is $95 a plate. And so you just determine that. But we have a section, let's say we have our coaches, they're only with us for a day or half a day. So we modify that ticket price to include their meal or whatever else they get without being too unreasonable for us, but where they can pay out of pocket, because that group would more than likely pay out of pocket. It's just determining who's attending what as a part of your conference and how you can best benefit there. Because the goal for all of us is to get as many attendees there as possible, on whether it's one day, single day or multiple days. Just figure out the audience, figure out what they need, and you just base your pricing upon that. You work backwards. And I can say is beware of the meal and the venue. That's gonna calculate the most of your debt. I won't say debt, but cost.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that, Jamal. And Lady Jane, what would your take be on this for increasing ticket prices?
Well, same as Jamal, it depends on your audience and what your event is for. Is it for profit or, so with all these caveats in mind, then you're able to increase your the cost for attending your event based on the cost of production. It's definitely not the same in my case, because it's not for profit, but we still tried increasing it just wasn't a good idea.
All right, thanks for that, Lady Jane. And as we are discussing some options to increase event budget, like we mentioned, advocating and kind of asking upper management for more, for a budget increase, or, increasing ticket prices. Another critical source of event revenue is sponsors and exhibitors. And I know we kind of also briefly touched upon this in our panel discussion, but what is your advice on increasing revenue through sponsors and exhibitors? Lady Jane, I'll ask you first.
Well, again, it depends on whether you are a for-profit business or a non-profit. So with us being a non-profit organization, organizing a conference that is also not for profit, it means the sponsors and exhibitors that we work with are going to be service providers like us. So it's a question of what do they get out of sponsoring you, right? So you just have to do a lot of research, connect with a lot of people, network, and then sell your idea to them. So we provide mental health, IDD, and substance use disorder services. If you provide these services, well, then come work with us. My conference happens to be a conference for the Black community. And we all know that there is such a huge stigma about mental health in the Black community. So if you want to increase your client base, if you want to reach out to the African American community, well, come exhibit or sponsor this event. If you have a DEI, so diversity, equity, and inclusion department, and you are hoping to be more visible in the community, well, this is the conference for you. So this is what we give you. And then in return, what do? You get more clients, you get a visibility in the community. When people know this is where to go for the services. So it's a win-win for both of us. Now, if it's for profit, then again, return on their investment. What are they getting out of it? Now, at the end of the event, it's not all, thank you for doing this, and then you go silent. You have to continue that conversation. You have to build that networking and collaboration. So the following year, when you go back, you already have something going. You don't just go missing and then show up again. Hey, about the conference, do you want to give us 1,000? It doesn't work like that. So collaboration, partnership, networking, sustain some type of friendship, and that's how it works for us.
Awesome. So thank you so much for that, leveraging and, kind of still building more trust in that relationship and particularly in the business relationship aspect with sponsors and exhibitors. So thank you so much for that, Lady Jane. And Jamal, what about you? What is your advice with sponsors and exhibitors?
Lady Jane hit it on the head. You have to leverage those relationships. And you have to poach a little bit. You have to do a little investigation. So when you meet with your sponsors, have your data. Have your data available to say, hey, this amount of people attend our conference, they work here, or they do this and that, they're connected to such and such. Before I became treasurer, I was at another conference, and I raised $250,000 in 24 hours meeting with different vendors and partners. And then we continued to grow those relationships to the point where we went from 1-year deals to multi-year deals. The next year we had a 4-year agreement from one of our partners for $150,000, and so on. So many other ones started coming. We custom made their packages, and we moved from just the conference to a year-round partnership, and we engaged them throughout the year. Prior to this meeting, I was connecting them. They have to understand that you have a relationship with them, and that's what they want, because they have to prove why their company should invest in this event, this organization. And because of that, they're investing in multiple events with us throughout the year. We're putting them in newsletters, we connected them to our other leaders, so on and so forth. You have to get them plugged in, you have to make them feel good, fatten them up, and then take them to slaughter. I put you in front of XYZ, we need XYZ at this amount of time. You need this audience, we bring it to you. What can you do? We're good to you, be good to us. And so with that being said, get as many sponsors. I even went below our sponsorship package and say, hey, some people said, well, I can only do XYZ. Okay, well, we'll make you a patron. So they're not in our traditional tier, but they're still getting something. And our organization is getting something to help support the event. We started doing named events, our general sessions, our main big sessions. You have to spend some money to be a named event for that. But when I have a little cocktail hour, my smaller companies that couldn't afford XYZ can cover that cost for that cocktail hour, and the rest is profit for us. And they're like, oh, I get the exposure. And that's really all they want. They want the connection, they want the exposure. And we have to figure out the ways to be creative for our different organizations to get those goals. Add a sponsor of the year, sponsor of the quarter, do whatever you need to do to make them happy.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. And I just kind of want to follow up here, bringing visibility or I want to ask you, Jamal, particularly, do you have any creative ideas for creating additional sponsorship opportunities? And you just kind of covered a little bit about that, like with your newsletter or other things, but do you have other ideas that you've used in the past to bring more sponsorship visibility?
So we have done a sponsor of the month. In our big conference, we do a sponsor of the year. Excuse me, a partner of the month. I moved from the word sponsor, I moved to partner because it's more of an intimate thing. We've also started having mini workshops with the partners. Right now, we're working on something where we have a mini professional development. They share their product, but they're also giving PD to our people. Our newsletter, our mail outs, social media spotlight. This is an array of things that we're incorporating. One of our sponsors, our officers got inaugurated. They want to do a special event for them. It's low cost for everybody, and they get the exposure physically and online. You just have to be creative and figure out what they want to see, who they want to talk to. All right, well, we're going to have a brunch or whatever, or a fireside chat with XYZ. One of our partners, we have a policy arm of our organization, and one of our partners wanted to be in the room with government officials. Well, our policy, we're hosting a policy institute that they're sponsoring, and they're in the room, and they're having those conversations. And that's really what it boils down to, how creative you can get.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Jamal. And as we are approaching the end of our panel discussion here, I do want to close out with this final question, which is another trend that we've noticed in organizing with organizers having in their events is offering continual educational credits or training programs at their event. And providing these high value opportunities can attract more revenue if it's relevant to your events. Have you considered offering training programs within your events at a cost? Do any of you have any thoughts on this question?
Yes, I will go first. So we've always provided continuing education credits for professionals who needed to renew their licenses every year. And in the past, you pay for the conference, everything is included, but as you attend the various sessions, you have to sign in, take an evaluation, and then so that we know you were there, and then we can provide you the certificate at the end of it. Now, keeping track of all those paperwork, it's a bit much, but Hoover, I must say, has made that easy for us because we can put the links to these surveys and signings in the chat. So if you miss it, it's a matter of going back to that session and looking for it. We can also email you the links. So that makes it easy. But what I really love is the fact that Hoover tracks your movement and everything that you do, right? So I'm able to tell whether you actually attended the session, because the rule says you must be there for the entire duration to get your certificate. So weeks after the conference, you get an email, I was there and I signed in, but I actually do not see your sign-in sheet or the survey. But Hoover tells me you were there for 45 minutes out of the 45 minutes that the session was hosted. So now, yes, I can now say, well, based on the fact that I have actual evidence, you can sign in and you can get your certificate. So that helps. That's excellent. And I really, really love that about Hoover.
Awesome. All right. Thank you for that, Lady Jane. And Jamal, are you doing any training programs in your events?
Yeah, so all of our event is, most of our events are all CE, well, all of them. Those are all CEU units. The same thing. This year we implemented the full survey with the attendance feature. We got a little pushback, but hey, I need my feedback. So if you want your credits and your certificate, you need to give me my feedback. I think our survey person really enjoyed the fact that Hoover was able to automatically send out the certificates as opposed to having to do manually. That saved a lot of time and a lot of stress, especially when people started asking, well, I need this, I need that. Well, did you complete your survey? Did you complete your feedback? So that was just a great feature to activate because it really helps. Just when you're trying to account for things, because in the rush after the conference, you're wrapping up the operational side. You don't have time to stifle through Excel and determine if such and such were there. That feature really helps a lot.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Jamal and Lady Jane. This concludes our panel discussion. So I'll now be moving here with our live Q&A portion of today's session. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the first popular question here that we have in our Q&A section. And this one's from Tanya, which I know some other audience members have responded, but a majority that are planning hybrid events, what is the deciding factor financially? Traditional designs won't generate enough revenue because everyone else is, but there's still some sense people are concerned about being in person. So how do you determine that hybrid is the way to go from a financial standpoint? Does anybody want to have any thoughts on this question?
I can go. It really boils down to what can you afford to make a profit. If your venue and your cost is not going to help you make a profit, then I would switch to hybrid or virtual. Right now, we're in the process of determining what programming we need to move around just to maintain profitability. So it depends on what you're trying to do, who you're trying to reach, and how much space you have. But I would strongly suggest you look at all those factors and determine whether or not you choose to be hybrid, traditional, or even virtual completely. Because if you can be virtual, and you get a greater reach, do it. If you feel they're going to be engaged and you get a greater reach, do it, because you're going to have your bigger profit margin, or whatever your bigger profit margin, your bigger attendance, whatever you need.
Awesome. All right. Thank you for that, Jamal. Lady Jane, do you have any thoughts on this question?
Similar thoughts. For me, it's about the reach. It's about attendance. So if virtual is what will bring me a lot of people to hear about mental health, then virtual it is. And in our case, that's what it is. So a hybrid for all those, wherever you are in the world, and you are able to tune in, awesome. If you can travel, that's great. But you don't have to feel you have to travel to Austin, Texas to be a part of this. And so hybrid is what I would do.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And we are closing here on our hour mark. So my last question for both of you is from Shelly. She asked any advice on how to increase your sponsor support during these challenging times. We've seen more turnover in the recent months than previously. I know we kind of covered on that, but do you want to expand a little further, either one of you, for more ways to get sponsor support?
Yes, I'd like to tell Shirley that you have to involve the sponsors that you have. You must involve them in your event. So don't just take their money and say thank you and put up a poster with their logos on. Give them something to do. They can introduce a keynote, attach the organization to a workshop session, have them introduce the workshop speakers, or give the closing remarks. So they feel like the leadership of the organization feels a part of your event. And the next time you go asking for more money, not only would they give you more money, but a friend of theirs might have seen like, oh, you were involved with the Hoover conference and I saw you introduce a keynote. I would love to do that, and so it kind of goes on from there, but involve them in the event. Don't just take the money and say thank you.
Awesome. Jamal, do you have any additional thoughts for this question?
Yeah, just to piggyback off what Lady Jane said, you have to involve them and make sure your team follows through with the involvement. This past year, we had an issue where we set the expectation with the sponsor and the partner and the team didn't follow through while the people that set the expectation were handling other issues. Make sure your team understands like, hey, this is what they are doing. They are involved in this matter. Please execute it. And if it's not executed for whatever reason, be honest with them and figure out how to make it right. Figure out what we can do to have a solution, because you do not want them to feel slighted, because you just have to make sure that they're involved and they're heard and the issue is handled as quick as possible for a solution.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much both for your advice on this question. And I'm seeing here at the time, it's already a few minutes past the hour, which means I'm going to go ahead and wrap up today's Event Insider session. So Jamal, Lady Jane, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you sharing your insight with us. I know I got some great takeaways from your tips and advice, and I'm sure our audience members did as well. To those of you in the audience, thank you so much for joining, participating, and asking great questions. It was a pleasure hosting this session, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I have.